Hello, good day. My name is Rich J. Ritaer from Bachelor of Science in Criminology, second year student. In this video, I will going to discuss about arch, loop, classification of loop, whether it is radial or ulnar, and lastly the whorls. So let's start.
Fingerprint as arch, and what makes a fingerprint an arch, and also how we determine of arch we have, because arch has two kinds, the plain arch and the tented arch. So what is arch? Arch or arches are the simplest type of fingerprint that are formed by ridges that enter on one side of a print and exit on the other. So arch fingerprints have ridges that form a heel. Arches are the least common type of fingerprint. So arches in general, the definition or explanation of an arch is any fingerprint pattern where the ridges tend to flow in from one side, rise up in the middle, and then flow out in the opposite side. There are two types of arches, the plain arch and the tented arch. So first, what is plain arch? A plain arch is that a type of pattern in which the ridges enter upon one side, make a rise or wave in the center, and flow or tend to flow out upon the opposite side. A plain arch cannot have a looping ridge, an unthrust, or a recurve. So that is a plain arch. Next is a tented arch. What is tented arch? It is a pattern that has at least two of the three basic requirements of a good loop pattern: the sufficient recurve, delta, and ridge count across a looping ridge. It is classified as a tented arch. When classifying an ending ridge, if the ridges on both sides of the ending ridge following its direction or flow trend, the print may be classified as a plain arch. If, however, the ridges on only one side follow its direction, the print is a tented arch. Classifying fingerprints as loops. Looking at these three fingerprints, we can see that we have clear representations of what would be considered as loops. So what is loops? A loop is that type of pattern in which one or more ridges enter upon either side, recurve, touch, or pass an imaginary line between the delta and the core, and pass out or tend to pass out upon the same side the ridge enter. So as you notice, we can say that loops can actually come in from the left side and exit the left side, or they would be what we'd call left slanting loops. So we can see comes in from the left and flows at the left, so it's a left slanting loop. Or in the second picture, we can have loops that come in from the right and then recurve and exit the right, so we have what are called right slanting loops. In terms of loops, as was already mentioned, loops are patterns where the ridges tend to enter from one side of the fingerprint, recurve, and then exit the same side. More importantly, there are three essential elements that a fingerprint pattern must possesses to be classified as loops. If it's missing any of these three essential elements, it cannot be classified as a loop. So if it only has two of the three elements, it's not a loop. So these are the three elements that our fingerprints pattern must have: one sufficient recurve, or at least one good unspoiled recurve. Next is a fingerprint must contain one delta. And lastly, the fingerprint pattern must have a ridge count of at least one that goes across the list, one looping ridge. So all three of those characteristics must be present in a fingerprint for to be classified as a loop. There are two types of loop, whether radial or ulnar. There are two types of loop, the radial loop and the ulnar loop. Now, the names radial and ulnar loops are actually derived from the fact that we have two different bones in our forearm. One bone is called the radius and the other is called the ulna. So that's going to help us determine whether or not a loop is radial or ulnar, by which direction the loop is recurving towards. Is it recurving towards the radius, or is it recurving towards the ulnar? Most loops are actually ulnar. When we look at the recurving ridges, most of them are going to recurve towards the ulna. And so they're going to be ulnar. In fact, 94 of loops are ulnar, and only about 6 of loops are radial. And to figure it out, if it is radial or ulnar loop, it is actually hold your hand directly above the print. When a loop enters and exits from the thumb side of the hand, the pattern will always be a radial loop. When a loop enters and exits from the pinky finger side, the pattern will always be an ulnar loop. So if we're looking at the fingerprint and we know for sure that the fingerprint came from the right hand, if we simply hold our right hand above the fingerprint with the palm side down, and if we observe whether or not the ridges recurve towards the pinky or recurve towards the thumb, and we can differentiate radial versus ulnar loops. Fingerprint as whorl. So what is a whorl? A whorl is a fingerprint pattern that consists of one or more ridges that form a circuit and are surrounded by two deltas. A circuit is a kind of circular formation. So if we look at this fingerprint, here you can see that there's more than one. Actually, there's several. There's 3 or 4 or 5 different ridges that form the circle or circle pattern in the middle. If you look at this fingerprint, also we can see that on the left hand side there are 2 type lines and a delta. Here on the left side and on the right side, we can see that there are 2 type lines and a delta on the right hand side. So this fingerprint definitely fits the description of what a whorl is. It's got a few different ridges, certainly more than one that form a circular circuit pattern in the middle, and it does have 2 deltas. So this is definitely an example of a whorl. If you look at the fingerprint on the things, you might notice whorls have a tendency to look a lot like a target. Like a target you might shoot at the gun range or an archery range. So when you're looking at the set of fingerprints, you can usually pick out the whorls pretty quickly because, again, they have the circle or circuit formation in the middle, which have a tendency to look kind of like a target you might shoot at. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. God bless and stay safe.